You're listening to The Right Side of the Rivers, hosted by Todd McCollum and Russell Dreyer. This show tackles public issues from a Pittsburgh point of view, offering common-sense conversations, right-of-center perspectives, and a focus on the people, policies, and principles shaping Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and Pennsylvania.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Right Side of the Rivers. And this is the official podcast of the City of Pittsburgh Republican Committee. My name is Todd McCollum. I am the chairman of the Republican Committee here in Pittsburgh. And as always, I have with me my friend and vice chairman, Russell Dreyer. Russell, episode 3.
Good evening, Todd.
Episode 3, huh? And big exciting news, we are live for the first time tonight.
Live and in living color.
5-star producer Missy took the training wheels off of us here, and we are rolling live on Facebook for the first time. So some thoughts on last episode. Eileen, big star, right?
We got great feedback from Eileen, a lot of interaction on our socials about Eileen. Obviously, allowing us to step up our game significantly. Eileen is a rock star, and she's been doing this a long time, a lot of hard work out in the field, talking to voters, registering new voters, understanding, she has her finger on the pulse of where the electorate is. And it was just, was great to be on the show with her.
Yeah, I also received a lot of great comments about Eileen. And of course, anytime you can get a flash dance reference into the right side of the rivers, that's always great work as well, too. So good job by you. I'll and try and keep up with that and keep you on your toes with Pittsburgh movie references there.
There you go.
Today, great show today. Like I said, live for the first time. We have a special guest. I'll let you introduce him here in a second, but we do want to talk about some current events. Of course, this week we had a regional tragedy, an explosion at the U.S. Steel Works plant in Clairton. We're going to talk about that. We'd like to talk about police staffing issues, was in the news again within the week or two, and interesting report from the city controller about the ShotSpotter. But why don't you introduce our guest here?
It's a pleasure for us tonight to be joined by Joe Pegher. Joe is a city committee person with us. Joe lives in Greenfield, and he's been a long-time committee member with us. And Joe's got his finger on the pulse of the community in Greenfield. And of course, that is Council District 5. And we all know who our favorite person is in Council District 5. Of course, I'm kidding. It's probably the most progressive city council person that we have in the city of Pittsburgh, and that's Barb Warwick. But it is a pleasure to have Joe with us tonight. Joe knows the ins and the outs of District 5, and he's going to tell us a little bit about how he found us and what's going on in his community.
So, Joe, welcome. Say hello to everybody, and welcome to the right side of the rivers.
Sure. So I'm happy to tell a little bit about myself. I grew up in Greenfield. I did kind of detour to Washington, D.C. for about 6 years. I worked for Xerox after I got out of school, and I had a chance to transfer back to Pittsburgh. And aside from an apartment here or there outside of Greenfield, I've lived there the majority of my life. My family's there. My dad grew up there. So I'm really invested in the neighborhood. I played baseball there. I went to the local St. Rosalia's Catholic school that I graduated from Alderdice later on. And it's just a great little neighborhood. For a long time, we were kind of a quiet little backwater of the city. Nobody knew about us. And, we kind of liked it that way. And, it's kind of nice to fly under the radar sometimes. But, the location to Oakland and downtown, the fact that we're on the right side of not only on the right side of the river, but we're on the right side of the Squirrel Hill tunnels, makes us an attractive neighborhood. And so we have a mixture right now of, some people like myself who've grown up there, and we have a lot of new families that have moved in. So that's that's probably the big news there. And Barb Warwick would be one of those new people that moved in.
Well, we're going to get to her for sure a little later on, but again, like I mentioned a couple days ago on Monday, U.S. Steel, Clairton Works, an explosion there, 2 fatalities, 10 injuries or so. So let's before we bring that in here, and that's part of the reason, and Russell and I have tried to make this area between us a little bit fun. It is a little bit more on point today and with a purpose, but we've brought Steely McBeam into to be the person in the middle. Of course, we have Ike the Elephant, the official mascot here. We wanted to have Steely McBeam in because he represents not only just the Steelers, but he is. We wanted to recognize the people at U.S. Steel today, and for the hard work that they do. And our thoughts and prayers are with them for everyone involved in the tragedy in Clairton. For all of those that work any of these jobs, whether it's a steel worker, miner, electrician, fireman, the oil and gas industry, we appreciate the jobs that you do. Again, we're specifically talking about steel workers today because of what happened, but if you are remotely involved in a dangerous job, like I said, electricians, miners, steel workers, we appreciate you, and more importantly, we respect you. And your work is noble. We want you to stay vigilant. Don't allow yourself to get complacent. Stay safe, and come home in one piece. And we thank you for the work you do. It is noble, Russell.
Certainly,
you might have a thought about that, but
certainly a somber start to the show. And this is who we are in Pittsburgh. This is our heritage. These are our fathers and grandfathers and friends, spouses, brothers. This is who we are in the city of Pittsburgh. Every part of the steel industry is what makes our skyline, and it's the reason that we are here. And it's really a tribute to that heritage that we want to pay special respects to the men and women that work in that industry, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with the families of the folks that were lost in this tragedy. But certainly, I know, Todd, for you were a son of a steel worker.
Was.
I am the grandson of 2 steel workers, both on my maternal side and paternal side. So this is who we are in Pittsburgh, and we have committee people who are steel workers, and we just this is a somber way to start the show, but it's an important part of who we are, and we just want to say that we are thinking about all the men and women at the Clairton plant and all those affected.
And the ribbons that you brought in today is in keeping them in our thoughts as well. Joe, Greenfield, of course, going to be
Sure. I grew up in between 2 steel mills, J&L and U.S. Steel. My dad worked in U.S. Steel his whole career. My grandfather worked there before him. Uncles, 2 brother-in-laws. I'm very, very familiar with the steel industry. Coincidentally, people like my kids have never known Pittsburgh to be a steel town. And we were talking about this, maybe it was premonition, but we were talking about steel mills just a week or 2 ago with my son. And I said every steel mill had a big sign out in front. It said X amount of days since the last accident in this plant. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew growing up. Their fathers, like we mentioned already, fathers, brothers, cousins, uncles, neighbors were steel workers. And we knew it was a dangerous job. But we also knew that those men and women that worked in that steel mill were very proud of themselves. They knew their work was important to build this country. They were very patriotic. And as a kid, I remember doing drills in school in case we were ever involved in an attack. I mean, back then the Russians were the big threat. And we would do nuclear warfare drills where we would hide in the basement of our school. And they would always talk about, since Pittsburgh was a steel producing town, we were on the list. If they hit a manufacturing hub, we would be one of the places they looked at. So, many of the people who are younger, like my kids, probably under 50, don't remember Pittsburgh as the smoky steel town where, accidents happened a lot like this. And it's been many years since we've had an accident like this. And that part's a blessing, but it has brought me back down memory lane to how often this stuff used to happen when there were steel mills all over the city.
Yeah, I was a little bit too young to remember any accidents when my dad worked at Duquesne. But, I still have very fond, vivid memories of my mom. We had one car at the time, and my mom picking me up as a youngster at 10:30 and driving down for the 311 shift to be let out at Duquesne, and they all, like a pack of Army ants, would walk across 837 and up Grant Street and into their cars. And we were back home by 11:15, and I was off to bed. But a lot of memories. Again, I grew up in West Mifflin, looking across at Braddock and the facilities over there. Steel is important.
Steel is important, and it really, we've been celebrating, very recently, we've been celebrating our achievements in steel. A couple months ago, we had the historic Nippon U.S. Steel deal at the Mon Valley Irvin Works, where Nippon Steel purchased U.S. Steel for $15 billion. And in addition to the $15 billion, they've also are going to come in and absolutely modernize the state of our, the current state of our steel making industry here in the region. And I just would like to again thank our leadership in the Republican Party, State Senator Ward, for really pushing to get that job done. And that is such a timely deal that got done now. In light of the tragic events that just happened at Clairton, we need to modernize and protect the men and women that go and do this dangerous job. Even though we are 2025 and there are different safeguards in place, it's still a very dangerous job. So again, just not that long ago, we were celebrating this historic deal for the region. And then last week, I believe, was the Edgar Thompson Works 150th anniversary, if you will, since it was operational.
Senator McCormick there with Senator Fetterman.
So things have been celebratory in the past few months. But this incident in Clairton brings it home that steelworkers are who we are, and God bless the families and everybody affected. And let's mourn. Let's get the site cleaned up, and then hopefully here in the near term we can get that infusion of capital into these factories, and to push towards safer working conditions for our men and women.
And an explanation for what happened as
Absolutely.
well, so that it doesn't happen again. Joe, anybody, you've talked about your family history with steel. Any friends currently working?
No,
or?
nobody's still in it, to my recollection. Maybe, distant cousins or something. But I guess what I was thinking about, kind of building on what Russell said, and going back to my kids, they've never known a time when places like Homestead, Hazelwood, other of these towns along the Mon Valley were thriving little metropolis. McKeesport were these thriving little metropolises that were there when I was a kid. That was because of that steel mill.
Mm-hmm.
Those were good paying jobs. My dad and mom had 8 kids. We all went to Catholic school. Yes, they sacrificed, but that was they put their money where they thought things were important. But though when we talk about having good paying jobs in our area, in our region, when we talk about building strong roots in a community, there are negatives to a steel mill. There's no doubt. It's a dangerous job. There's always the concerns about pollution and things like that, and those have to be watched out for. There has to be watchdog groups to watch out for the workers' safety, to watch out for the community safety, all those sorts of things. But the economic benefits of those jobs, of those steel mills, is so great. And I've often, in addition to the happiness that I have for the Nippon deal, I'm somewhat surprised that some of our local politicians, maybe our congressperson comes to mind, that they weren't more on board with that. I saw a great amount of cooperation between our two senators, which was very encouraging to me.
Very refreshing.
Yes.
I think they worked together on that and did a great job. I saw a lot of cooperation from these small towns with their mayors, and many of them were not, were across the political spectrum. And it shows how when we work together, even if we don't agree on things, like my wife and I don't agree on everything. I don't always like things that I say or do, like I'm disappointed in myself. Nobody's perfect, but when something is good for our region, when something's good for our city, if we can all come together and work on it together, we all benefit. And that's where, I think our message as Republicans is important, is that we have to be, it's hard to be positive sometimes. It's much easier to be negative and point out the negatives. And when a tragedy like this happens, there's going to be some people that do that. But, I remain optimistic that better times are ahead with this deal.
No, absolutely. And that was very well said, Joe. I think one of the ethos of Todd and I's, mission with the committee is, look, we obviously do represent the Republican Party, but this is a big tent party, and we want to find like-minded individuals, but we also want to find common solutions that are going to lift all people in Pittsburgh, in the region, not just Democrats or Republicans or independents, but we're looking to work with people across the aisle to solve issues for the entire city. And I just like to put an exclamation point on your train of thought there, Joe. That's exactly how it should work. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that all the time, but I know that's something that Todd takes a lot of pride in as well.
Yeah, and I actually appreciate you calling out the Congresswoman for standing by with her hands in her pocket and not doing anything to help these communities. Very important that these communities thrive, and have a rebound. Clairton, Braddock, McKeesport, as you mentioned, and this is all seed for economic development, new people moving into the county, and small businesses to sprout out of this.
Sure, money doesn't solve every problem, but it solves an awful lot of problems.
It helps a lot.
I think there was a football player once who went bankrupt, and they asked him about that, and he said it's a lot better to cry in the back of a Mercedes than it is to cry riding a bicycle.
Right.
These steel towns that I mentioned, and there's many of them, if they got an influx of capital, a little store opens up, a grocery store, a shoemaker, a hairdresser, a restaurant, and that drives economic development in those areas.
Without a doubt.
I think we'll cut that off there. That's good last word for that by Joe. Your friend, the city controller,
yes,
has some thoughts on ShotSpotter. And we should probably weigh in on this, don't you think?
Absolutely. Speaking of Rachel Heisler, what is she running for? Is she running for something? I have a feeling that she may be running for something here. But stand by. Well, I guess she'll let us know what she's running for. But Todd, you're talking about her report. Now yes. She's got a report out. I believe we have about $8.5 million budgeted for ShotSpotter, and I believe we've used about $8 million of that so far. Now, having looked through the report, it looks like ShotSpotter does quicken police response time. That's definitely a tool that has been working to get our police force out to the scene of the gunfire. There's no doubt about that.
It would seem to be a good tool for the responding officers. It's an investigative tool to know. ShotSpotter can tell us exactly how many shots have been fired, whether that's ongoing. I'm to understand that it's pretty good at triangulating a location where it is. And again, it gets help to injured people as well. Which is a stat that showed up in a recent article about assaults are up. Although the mayor always claims that homicides are down, and they are, violent assaults, as if there's a difference between nonviolent assaults, but assaults with firearms are up. And so it would seem that we would probably want to keep ShotSpotter around. There's, and we'll bring you in here, Joe, because you're councilwoman, our friend, kinda. She likes traffic cameras as opposed to ShotSpotter. But any thoughts? I mean, you probably don't live in a neighborhood that has much need for it, which is fortunate. But your thoughts on spending, I guess.
Greenfield has very few shootings, although we did have a police shooting, which was fatal a few days ago, actually, on Murray Avenue. The police responded to a domestic abuse situation. I don't know what the details are of that. I haven't heard much about it since. But we did have a few shootings a few years back, and I give the police credit. They knew who it was right away. They were involved. They had a community meeting, informed the neighborhood of what was going on, and I think ShotSpotter is a good thing. I think you have to understand that it is not a preventive tool; it's a reactive tool.
Correct.
And if you've ever been a victim of crime, which I have on occasion, you want the police there as fast as possible, and you want them to have as much information as they can possibly have as quickly as they can. And if I or one of my loved ones was shot, I would certainly want the police to have the most accurate, up-to-date, real-time data they could have to try and catch that. If you see, just hypothetically, ShotSpotter alerts them, they drive towards the scene of the incident, and they see a car speeding away, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and there's not much traffic out. Yes, that's a snap judgment, but you can at least say, hey, that's a likely candidate of who may have done that shooting. Or you see somebody running with a gun in their hand. It puts you on alert as to what's going on and makes you better prepared. So
the other interesting piece about this study from the city controller was that the 911 calls are actually down for reporting gunfire, but ShotSpotter is up. So it sounds like maybe people aren't.
There may be a community crutch there involved. That ShotSpotter's picking it up; they're already on the way. I couldn't come up with an explanation, and I saw that same information, but I don't have an explanation for why 911 calls are down. But yeah, that was part of the study.
I think it, for me, it may speak to a bit of a broader trend with respect to law enforcement, and people. There's sort of a movement out there that people are sort of getting away from calling 911. Don't call the police. It's kind of a if you your community Facebook page. I mean break-ins. Car break-ins are up. Thefts, stolen packages off porches on all the neighborhood socials are up. But again, if you just peruse through the comments on those community Facebook pages, folks are saying, look, don't call the police. So it's a bit of a worrying trend, which I think brings us, possibly into another issue we're going to talk about here today, and that's police staffing shortages.
Yes, for sure. We're way down in staffing, and it's going to be very difficult to catch up anytime in the near future, and that's a trend across the country. And
yeah, it looks like we have 270 active police officers that are patrolling. Now, I think the total number of police staff is somewhere around 700, Todd. But yeah, so police that you actually interact with on the street when you need them, there's only about 270 police officers out there on the street. So it looks to me like retirements are vastly outpacing new recruits.
Joe, how are you seeing police patrols in your neighborhood?
Well, clearly I don't see as many police officers in the neighborhood patrolling as I once did. The numbers are clearly down. As a person who's just a civilian, I've never been a police officer. I did spend a lot of time in police stations in my previous career. They were a customer of ours. I would say this, the people who are of the opinion that we should have less policing and more social workers, things like that, I don't think anybody, reasonable person, is opposed to using social workers as in complement with the police. But, I hearken back to that incident near my house. What would a social worker have done in that situation when you have a man with a knife threatening people? I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure in my mind I'd rather have a police officer there than a social worker at that point. And, the other thing I immediately think of with these, as a citizen and somebody who's got a wife and kids, is that, when there's less police on the streets, the criminals watch the news too. They read the paper. They get their news off the internet just like the rest of us. If I'm a criminal and I hear, hey, there's only 13 police officers on the streets in the middle of the night, that's a windfall for me. We just had a incident over in Garfield, I believe, where, in the middle of the night, a man's business was broken into and thousands of dollars of equipment was wheeled right down the street, and security cameras captured it. Maybe if there's more patrols going on, a police officer sees that and stops them.
Yeah, it was early morning hours, but it certainly wasn't super early. It was between like 5 and 7 in the morning. They were just wheeling, looked like grocery carts full of building equipment, et cetera, right down. I assume that would have been Penn Avenue right there.
Sure, and the thing that I learned growing up in the city, Pittsburgh's a very safe city compared to other big cities. When I lived in Washington, D.C., and not to even get into all of what's going on in there with their policing problems, but when I lived there, it was much different. And I was fortunate that I grew up in a city where I did learn to kind of keep my wits about me when I was in certain situations. There's certain areas in our city where you can be very relaxed and not have to worry about anything. There's other areas where you have to kind of keep your head on a swivel and pay attention to what's going on. And people have an uncanny ability of being able to see situations which are out of the ordinary. We had a dog that my wife used to walk, and he was very, very intuitive about when he would see someone acting strange or loud or noisy, he would go on alert. And I think most people who are aware of their surroundings do that. But police officers are even more hyper aware of that kind of thing. When somebody's acting funny, when somebody's doing something peculiar or strange, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you should at least stop and take a look at it and say, oh, he's just waiting for his child, and that's why he was doing something a little peculiar. But, we say, if you see something, say something. And not having as many eyes on the street with police officers it's just not a good thing. We need more police officers, even if, the old joke was they were sitting around eating donuts in the donut shop. I'd rather have them sitting around eating donuts than not be there at all.
Right. And it's something that you brought up I did want to circle back to, and it was the talk of the social workers, and your councilwoman is a fan of that. She's quoted on that. But you know, I'm a retired police officer, and we used to do joint details with the school police. Whether we were going into abandoned houses across from schools where guns may be stored or something like that, usually the situation, but we would do joint effort with the school police. The problem with the school police in Pittsburgh is they're not armed.
Correct.
And so what that creates is a situation is, as a police officer now, not only do you have to worry about your own safety and defense of yourself, you now have to put another person, their safety in your hands, and you now have to defend them as well. And I think that would be probably my biggest problem with social workers coming in a door first or second. Again, look at the situation that happened in your neighborhood. Again, county police are investigating that per policy, so we're still finding out information. And when we talk about these situations too, just on a sidebar, because we're probably going to talk about DOMI here in a little bit and accidents, we recognize that there's a name attached to these people, and they have loved ones. We are here to try and make the city better and the situation better. We're not taking for granted that lives have been lost. And in reference to the police shooting the other day, we sympathize with the loved ones of the person lost. And as always, we keep the thoughts and prayers of the police officers that were involved in that situation.
Sure.
as well.
I mean, it's a tragedy all around. And I saw the only details they did release was he's a young man. I think he was 24.
Yeah. So
He had his whole life ahead of him. And, without knowing any details, I specifically didn't give much of an opinion on it because I don't know any details and I don't want to rush to judgment on anything. But it's a tragedy. And it would be much better for everyone if it was avoided and settled peacefully rather than the way it had to end.
And I think what the overall data shows us, at least in Pittsburgh, why we're short-staffed on police is it looks like we have a lot of folks retiring, so you've got a huge gap between folks that are retiring and new recruits. We've got a pay gap here in the city of Pittsburgh. What we're paying our officers versus what those officers can make in neighboring municipalities. So the data seems to show us what's happening, but maybe not why it's happening. I think part of our job as we go out and talk to people is to try to find out, well, why are these things happening?
I'd also throw in there that when you talk about the discrepancies as well, but the morale, and so just think that how we're dealing with our fleet issue, and you can't get new police cars, or we're not getting enough police cars. Police cars are broken down, ambulances are broken down. Again, that's a morale thing that you're driving around in some beat up hoopty or something. I know the situation is better than when I was on and we were driving old beat up Ford Tauruses and an occasional Pontiac Bonneville or something like that. But the cars, at least from the outside, have a nice appearance. I don't know what the mileage situation is, but again, facilities such as new police stations or upgraded police stations, computers. Are they wearing the best cameras? Are they getting the best ballistic vests? These things matter to a police officer. At least it did when I was on it, for sure.
It absolutely matters. And when you talk about morale, there has been a full frontal assault on the morale of the police since 2020, let's say. And I think if we really talk to people about why you can't get new recruits, it's just that the police have been demonized. They're not allowed to do their jobs, and it's just a very, very tough and thankless job that our police officers have been put in over during this sort of defund the police movement over the past 4 or 5 years.
And Joe, I'll bring you in here because you're councilwoman, the ultra progressive, has recently introduced a bunch of bills for deprioritizing certain crimes, or crimes that aren't even crimes yet, that they're trying to head off legislation that hasn't even been drafted yet by state or federal government. But she's made the effort to deprioritize prostitution, for one, in Pittsburgh. We asked Eileen this the last time. How did she, because you live in a rather, what would seem to be a conservative district, how did she get into the hen house?
Well, she started her political career, I believe. There's a part of Greenfield called the Run, and they've had some flooding problems down there, which were very legitimate. They also had a situation where, the topography of Pittsburgh, we have hills, we have valleys, and we have, gullies where streams run down. And a lot of the roads around here, Negley Run, Gertie's Run, Negley Run, Run is a stream. That was a stream bed. And, so those are prone to flooding. But houses were built there for a variety of reasons. And I'm not saying that I'm not discounting the problems they have down there. What was supposed to happen, or what was talked about happening, is because of the development going on in Hazelwood, they wanted to find a way to connect Oakland, which is a major employment hub and education hub, with this new development in Hazelwood. And one of the proposals was some sort of a road in between. And her and some of the residents of the Run were adamantly opposed to it. I was involved with the community association at the time, and it was brought up numerous times. We had hours and hours of discussion about it, but each time it was discussed, there was a lot of people who were more agnostic about it than opposed to it, and she was very opposed to it. I don't really know many people that were super in favor of it. They just wanted to find out more information. And there was a little bit of, in my opinion, a little demonization that started to occur there. If you're not against it, you're against us. And we're like, we just want more information and find out what it is. There's different proposals. There was a talk about it going on Bates Street at one time, and they were trying to come up with a way to make this happen. And that was kind of the springboard for her career. She got involved with the community group, and then as a result of that, she ran for office for city council when Corey O'Connor stepped down to take a different position. Before that, though, she was already planning on running. I'm sure she was knocking doors. And I would say all this stuff if Barb was here. I don't dislike Barb. Barb and I have had many, many conversations privately, publicly, where we disagree with each other very adamantly on things. But we have respectful conversations for the most part. I can't really speak for what's said behind closed doors. I've heard a couple of people say that she said some things, but I didn't hear them, so I'll take those with a grain of salt. But it's a shame because, in my opinion, a city council person should be somebody who brings the neighborhood together rather than separates it. And I think the sentiment by a lot of people, myself included, would be that everybody's usually excited when your city council person's from your neighborhood. And unfortunately, in the city of Pittsburgh and in Allegheny County, that usually means your streets get cleared first. You get the best of the best at the baseball field and the playground. That's just the way it works here in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County. And, unfortunately, Barb has been one of those council people that she has her own agenda, and she has a certain group of people that are behind her and very solidly behind her, and they're the more progressive wing of the Democratic Party. And they're very much focused on a couple of main issues, and that would be one of them. She had somebody involved in her circle that was an important item for her. So that's how it happened. The people that I kind of agree with that are like-minded to me, the older neighborhood residents, and I mean, it's not split between old and new and, Democrat and Republican. It's more moderates and progressives than anything else. And some of those people grew up there and they're progressive. I mean, it's, like I said, it's not split right down the line, but the feeling, and I would say this if Barb was here, as I said earlier, the feeling that people get, like myself, is when you talk to her about issues in the city, she will listen, but she'll say, yeah, but, and then she tells you why she's going to do what she's going to do. She listens, but she doesn't hear. And that's frustrating to people. They don't feel represented. They feel like it's not worth talking to her because she's just going to do whatever she wants to do anyway.
Now, to pick up on that real quick, she's going to do what she wants to do anyway. How does that attitude tie into traffic calming measures in your neighborhood and what you've seen over maybe the past couple years with traffic calming measures with or without input from the community?
Well, they did a traffic calming in our neighborhood. They put up some poles. They put up some speed bumps near the school and near the playground. Now, the speed bumps, in my opinion, are fine. If you have a kid's school and a kid's playground and a swimming pool, that's a good place to have a speed bump. But not to go into too much details about the polls were bad. A lot of people, the vast majority of people, agreed that the polls were a bad idea and it's a tricky intersection. So I give credit or a little bit of leeway to Domi or whoever came up with this, but there was little to no public input in it. What happened was the community group kind of had some meetings about this. In my opinion, as being a previous member of the committee, it was not well advertised. Most people didn't know anything about it until these polls popped up one day. And it causes traffic to basically have to go around these poles and almost be in a head-on situation. If you oppose those polls, which I did, people were asking, what should we do about this? I created a petition online. We got over 900 signatures. I brought that to Barb.
These are poles that are in the asphalt.
Yeah, the same kind of poles you see all over the city.
Yeah.
I was told, well, the community group did that and Domi did that and we're going to look at it. So some people from the community group talked to me and I said, we need to get on the agenda to come to a meeting and talk about this. And it was soft pedaled. It was, well, we'll do it after the Christmas parade that we have. We'll do it some point in the future, and they totally ignored my petition. Like I said, we had 900 signatures. People were very upset about it. It was all over social media. They just ignored it. And, they said, oh yeah, we're taking this into account, but they didn't care. And, at one point somebody said to me, well, are all those people from the neighborhood, all 900? I said, they're city residents. They're allowed to have an opinion on the streets that they pay for with their taxes. If I get in an accident, it doesn't matter if I live in Greenfield or Hazelwood or Squirrel Hill or Wexford. It's a dangerous intersection, and we've tried to fix one problem and created a worse problem by putting these poles in.
It's very confusing. We had some friends in from out of town just last weekend, picked my wife and I up, and we were driving around the city, and they didn't know what to do when they encountered these traffic calming measures. It literally, you've got these poles sticking out of the streets. Now, obviously, we're all, I would say, getting used to them now. But when you're from out of town, they literally didn't know what to do, if they should stop, if they should go around another vehicle, go into another lane. It was very confusing, and I thought that was an interesting perspective from someone who doesn't drive on city streets but could be coming in here to visit or to work.
Well, they did have a meeting eventually, and we were told that Domi would be there to address our issues. And a representative from the city came, but he was not from Domi. And basically, he was a message taker. He said, I will bring your feedback back to Domi. And I stood up at the meeting and said, why isn't Domi here? Why can't we talk to Domi? Is Domi beyond reproach? Are they, like when I worked for Xerox, we used to have a saying when a bad product came out, Nobody wants to be told they have an ugly baby. And that's what happened with this. This was, even some of the people on this committee had signed my petition. So they knew that it's it needs redone. I'm not saying something shouldn't be done there, but it needs redone. The current configuration is terrible. They changed it slightly. They adjusted the pole's position, but it didn't fix the problem. Now, my issue with it is I had somebody literally go online and confront me and say, "Oh, you had a traffic ticket in North Huntington a couple of years ago. You're an unsafe driver."
Oh, wow.
You know, these are people that, like, instead of just saying, "Hey, let's work together on a problem in the neighborhood," they're demonizing me as the bad guy because I pointed out that we have a problem. And as I said earlier, with our two senators, when we work together, we can all get some of what we want. We're not going to get everything we want, but we're going to get some of what we want. To go back, I get a little off track there, Todd. I apologize.
No, that's quite all right.
But, you know, to go back to your thing, I heard nothing about, there was no community input, at least that I saw, about anything related to those bills that went through and were eventually passed. There was no community input that I saw. So I'm not sure. My feeling is this.
Well, there was community input. It was just targeted community input.
Correct. And that's where I'm going with this, is my feeling and the feeling of many of her constituents that I speak to. I don't speak for everybody, but the people I speak to, is that she is not a representative for the community. She's a representative for herself and the activists that are, you know, that support her. And I was told by, you know, somebody else at a committee meeting or a city council meeting, they had discussion about the inclusionary zoning, and I'm sure we could look this up. She made a comment during her speaking time where she said, some of these other council people vote to get reelected. They vote what their constituents want. I vote for what I think is right for the city. That's not being a representative of your community. In a representative government system like we have, I may not agree with something like gun control or abortion or any of these other hot button issues. But if that's what my constituents want, that's my job, is to go in. It's just like a lawyer. You may know your client is guilty or innocent, but you have to represent them to the best of your ability. It doesn't matter whether you believe them or not. You have to do your job as a representative.
Well, let's pick up on that real quick. We asked Eileen the same question when Eileen was in here about Barb Warwick and if she's going to be vulnerable for the next city council election, because as we know, she was one of probably the most outspoken supporter of Mayor Ed Gainey during his primary. And I just wonder if you think that she's a vulnerable candidate for one of our folks, or
in 2 years, yeah.
I have heard discussion of people saying they would like to have somebody run against her, and that's on her side of the aisle, not on our side. The challenge there, no matter how vulnerable somebody thinks she is that we live in a very heavily Democratic district. And we also live in a district that has Squirrel Hill in it, which is a very large voting bloc. And they're going to vote Democrat very strongly. Unfortunately, sometimes with politics, it has to get so bad that people agree to change. And I'm not sure it's quite at that point yet where it's so bad, but I certainly personally disagree with a lot of what she said. I've voiced my opinions to her, and to her credit, she has meetings times every Friday at the Hazelwood Library. At least she, occasionally she does, and she'll say, "I'm not meeting this week," but you can go there and talk to her. So I give her credit for that. She does have an open door policy that you can go and talk. Maybe the answer is having more people go and talk to her about things and express. Maybe we're not doing a good enough job expressing our opinions and being the squeaky wheel. But I think the challenge with our district especially, and I've mentioned this to you guys before when we spoke, is that people, like to follow a winner. They don't want to vote for somebody that they think is going to lose. And the prevailing sentiment in the city of Pittsburgh, and the reason why I changed from a Democrat, which I was for a long, long time, into being a Republican, is because I didn't agree with the platform of what was going on a lot of the times anymore. I didn't change, the party changed. And I will mention this. There was a psychological study done many years ago, and what they did was they gave a person a card, and it had a line on it 3 inches long. And they had 20 other people who were actors. And through a series of questions, they would say, okay, is this line as long as the line on this card? And they gave the correct answer, and everybody agreed. Well, after 3 or 4 rounds, then they started to give the wrong answer. And 75% of the time, the person who was not part of the experiment was pressured by everybody else saying that's the wrong, line. They were pressured into giving the wrong answer. Only 25% of the people would give the right answer and stand by it. And that's what happens in politics a lot of times. People know something's wrong. They know it's not right. They don't agree with it, but they don't want to be the one that stands up and raises their hand and says, I don't agree. They don't want their neighbors to not like them. They don't want to get in trouble with work. They don't want people vandalizing their property. People have a lot to lose. If you work for a union or something like that, you can be blackballed and blacklisted over putting the wrong yard sign in your yard. Your car can be scratched up in front of your house or at work. It happens. And I saw another study recently at I think it was Northwestern University. 88% of college kids at that university, and this was 23 to 25, 2025, said 88% of them said, I have pretended to be more liberal than I actually am in regards to my education and with other classmates because I didn't want to be ostracized. I didn't want to be demonized. And I've written papers with a liberal or a left-leaning slant to get a better grade because I knew if I gave my true opinions, I would get a lower grade. That's the kind of thing we're battling against in a very liberal and democratic neighborhood. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who are Democrats in name only. That's what I was for a long time. I didn't agree, but I wanted to vote in the primary and be a part of who was going to get elected. That's our job, and that's why I became a Republican, is I wanted to give an alternative to those people like me that were out there that said, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And I want somebody else, I want another choice.
And you weren't a part of the original, I guess, reboot of the committee and the GOP here in the city. You come along a little bit after, not very much long after, but tell us how you found us, or how Eileen found you.
I tried to find the Republican Party when I made my switch, and it was a little bit of a dead man walking at the time. There wasn't much going on with the Republican Party. Eventually, I did put a yard sign up at one election, and I was home one day and I got a knock on my door, and it was Eileen. And Eileen and I know each other from the neighborhood. Her brother and I went to school. Her mom made great cupcakes that we would all trade Michael for at lunchtime. And so I've known her my whole life. And she said, "Oh, are you a Republican?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I'm involved with the committee." I said, "I've been trying to get in touch with them or see what's going on for like a couple years, and I kind of gave up. I emailed, tried to show up at a meeting and there was nobody there. I emailed somebody and nothing happened. And that's what got me involved. I have no desire to be a politician. I have no desire to be deeply involved in politics. I just have a deep desire because I'm proud of Pittsburgh. I'm proud of my neighborhood. And if I wasn't optimistic that something better is out there for us, I wouldn't be here. I can't tell you how many people I know from my neighborhood that grew up there or currently live there that say, this city's going to hell. And as soon as I retire, as soon as my kids are grown, I'm moving out and I'm going to go somewhere else where I don't have to pay high taxes and I don't have to deal with this BS anymore. And that makes me even want to fight harder. I don't want to see, I lived in a different city. Pittsburgh is someplace special. I think that used to be a tagline for KDK or somebody. It really is. And, when I lived in DC and I would bring people back here, they were like, I was just walking down the street and somebody was saying hello to me. They were like, just waving at me and said hi. And they were like, that never happens in DC. That doesn't happen in New York or Philly. We're a small town that's a big city.
When you're giving somebody, when someone asks you for direction, you just say, well, just follow me.
Right.
I'll
I
show you how to get
I don't
there.
want to lose that. I don't want us to turn into every other big city. And yes, we're quirky. Yes, we have a funny accent. Yes, we say things. And the old joke is, if the world ended tomorrow, Pittsburgh's the best place to be because it wouldn't happen for 5 more years. I like the fact that we're slow moving when it comes to social change, that we consider things, that we don't jump right into the next pop thing. I like that, we have traditional family values. I like that we, value the family. People say to me, I'm in the real estate business now. People say to me, these people lived here for 30 years in this house? That would never happen in California. That never happened in DC. People moved every 5 years when I lived in DC. People here have roots. They have deep roots in their community, and they know people in their community. That's what I love about Pittsburgh, and that's what I want to see continue.
Well, I think I'll take the last word here. Joe, you are a valued member of our committee, and I appreciate all the work that you do. Obviously, you're very analytical. You have an opinion. It's solid, and I appreciate the work that you do with the committee and all the help that you give here. I think I'm speaking for you
Absolutely.
there too.
Second that, no hesitation.
And we're glad you're here, and you have brought people with you and helped grow the committee. And like I said, I appreciate that very much. We have promised candidates coming up here, and we are going to have that. And that's going to start very soon. But we're coming to the end of our time here. 5-star producer Missy is saying that it's time to wrap it up. We appreciate your time here. We will be back in 2 weeks on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. You can download our podcast on your favorite podcast catcher. And of course, you want to throw the social medias out?
Sure. Find us on.
I don't have to wrap everything up all the time. You can.
Well, absolutely. Follow us on all our socials. PGH GOP Committee on X, Facebook, and Instagram. That's PGH GOP Committee on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you want to check out our website, PittsburghRepublicans.com. Okay, show number 3.
Well, my friend,
Great.
live and in living color. It's always a pleasure working with you.
Likewise, Todd.
I appreciate everything you do for the committee. Once again, this is the official podcast of the City of Pittsburgh Republican Committee, and it's called The Right Side of the Rivers. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks, and thanks, Joe, for sitting in with us. Great
Thanks
time
for having
today.
me. It was a pleasure.
Take care, guys.
Be good, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to The Right Side of the Rivers. We appreciate you spending your time with us as we talk about the issues that matter to Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, and beyond. Be sure to visit us online at PittsburghRepublicans.com for more updates, events, and ways to get involved. And don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on X, Facebook, and Instagram at PGHGOP Committee. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay on the right side of the rivers.